Alright, this is John Kohler with okraw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. Happy December, guys, wherever you guys are at. And hopefully it's not snowing where you are. I guess they're having some crazy weather in Houston and it's snowing there, but here in my garden it's nice and sunny and I still got plenty of peppers that I need to be harvesting. In any case, in this episode, what I'll be doing is actually we're going to be answering your guys' questions. So I don't do this too often on this channel, but I'm going to try to do a little bit more often because I know a lot of you guys have a lot of questions for me sometimes. And I apologize, I can't respond to each and every question that appear in videos or under comments because I have a lot of people that follow my work and I don't have the time to unfortunately respond to everybody. So I do have videos like this where I will basically put together a bunch of questions that I have been asked and then answer them for you guys. And if you guys want a chance to ask me your question personally, I do have a way you could do that for just $5. You could talk to me for 10 minutes. And this is actually on my garden coaching session, but I'll talk about anything actually for 10 minutes. I'll put a link down below to my Fiverr campaign. Of the $5, I only get $4 because they kind of keep $1. And then of that, I take out $0. All that money actually goes back into the Fiverr community to help get my videos transcribed so that my content will be available for people that may be hearing impaired or in other countries because YouTube will translate the transcriptions into other languages. Anyways, on with the show today. First question is from Quinn KDJS. What is your take on peanut butter? Thank you in advance. All right, so peanut butter. So peanut butter's not a raw food, number one. And most peanut butter that you buy in the store are roasted. In addition, most peanut butter you buy in the store are probably not organic, and then also they do have a lot of additives in there. So I can't just say, oh yeah, peanut butter, it's great. You know, you got to make sure you get 100% real peanut butter. That being said, when you do roast peanuts at high temperature, you know, that can cause some toxins to be created and be formed. So, you know, peanut butter would not be my first choice, although I probably would eat peanut butter before I ate a cow. That being said, you know, what I do eat is actually, I personally eat jungle peanuts, which are actually don't have the aflatoxin mold, it's said. And then they are raw, and then actually I grind those up into my own 100% jungle peanut butter. And so that's what I like to do. But, you know, peanut butter, you know, hey, what I want you guys to remember is everybody always wants, what's the best food, John, or what's the worst food? Like, there's always a range of spectrum. I'd rather have you guys eat some natural 100% peanut butter without any extra added in oils or monoglycerides or sugar or salt or extra flavorings or preservatives in there than most other foods. I mean, come on. If you eat peanut butter versus eating some diet cheese, hey, some peanut butter is way better than some diet cheese, right? But of course, like eating some fresh peppers or longevity spinach out of my garden, in my opinion, is way better than eating peanut butter. And I'd much rather eat the peanut butter fruit, which tastes amazing, instead of actually eating peanut butter itself. So once again, I always encourage you guys to do good, better, best. All right, next question is from Sonia Petrone. Hi, John. I have converted to juicing by you and your videos. I have even purchased the Omega VS juicer, whose use has completely changed my diet. I have to say I experience sickness when the juice is too green. Number one, what do you suggest about not experiencing sickness when juicing, drinking greens? And two, how do you clean up the Omega juicer parts? I followed the instructions given to use baking soda with no results. All the parts stain easily. I usually wash daily with water, but it's not enough. As I said, stains and materials build up and it's difficult to clean them, and the brush use, it's not enough. All right, so number one, so suggestions for not experiencing sickness when drinking and juicing greens. Don't juice a lot of them, right? If you're experiencing sickness, nausea, you know, it could be due to many different reasons, but basically, in my opinion, some of the nutrients in the greens are quite strong. They can maybe have a detoxifying effect, or plainly, your body's probably just not used to it. So I like to just basically do a ratio. If I remember, I'll put a link down below, which is actually a video I did called Free Juice Recipes for Life. Another video I did actually is entitled How to Prevent Nausea When Drinking Juices. So those two videos would be really good. But real quick, some tips are juiceless greens. You know, try to make your juices more rich in celery and cucumber. You know, a higher percentage and less green. Like the Juice Man, Jay Cordis, the Juice Man recommends no more than 25% of your glass as like leafy green juice. You know, celery and cucumber is a lot more milder, so I mean, I'll just drink juices of 100% celery and cucumbers, and then just add small amounts of green. And then also, I want you guys to rotate the different things you're juicing. Don't just juice kale all the time, as good as kale is, because you know, you're gonna get a lot of the nutrients and also the anti-nutrients in the kale, and you're not gonna be able to get nutrients out of spinach if you're not juicing spinach, for example. Other things you guys could do is you guys could dilute your juices. So dilute your juice down with some pure coconut water or some filtered water, right? So this makes it a lot more dilute, so it's not quite as strong going in. Let's see, and how do you clean the Omega juicer part? So basically I go to IKEA, and they have like dish brushes at IKEA for like 49 cents. They're amazing. They have nice stiff bristles. And after I'm done juicing, I basically put a little dish soap on the IKEA brush and just scrub all the parts everywhere vigorously underneath the faucet as the water's running. And then I put it up, and usually at that point, if you do wash with soap and water, not just water, you know, you do get any kind of stains off, and you will prevent actually any buildup from occurring. It's very important to do it right after you're done juicing though. The other thing is, if you don't use any kind of soap, then you may not get some of the colorings off, and you may get buildup on your screen and whatnot. If you do need to get it off at some point, then I would recommend using something called Lemmy Shine. It's like a dishwasher detergent. You just like put a little bit of Lemmy Shine in hot water and soak your juicer parts in overnight, and then take it out the next day and scrub really vigorously to get it clean, and then keep up with the maintenance on a day-to-day basis. All right, next question is from Robert Doyle. John, which nuts do you consider best for you or anyone? So Robert, you know, I don't like to say like buy this nut, it's the best, because as human beings, we always want to know like what's best, and then we're only gonna eat the best one, and we're not gonna eat like the other ones because this one's the best, right? And in my opinion, the best nut for you is the nut that actually that best meets the nutritional requirements that you are deficient in. And I don't know what that is, you know, you need to get your own testing. But what I will say is that every different nut and seed out there have different levels of fatty acids and proteins and vitamins and minerals, and more importantly, phytonutrients and antioxidants and lignans and sterols and stanols and all these crazy things, right? But you don't have to know all that. What you need to know is you just need to rotate the different nuts you're eating, right? As much as I like to eat macadamia nuts, you know, a lot of the time, because they have a nice, you know, higher fat content, they make my dressings and things taste really creamy. I don't just only ever eat macadamia nuts. Now, I probably go through more macadamia nuts than I do other nuts, granted, but I do eat, you know, walnuts and pecans and hazelnuts and Brazil nuts and pine nuts. All different kinds of nuts, right? And so I always try to rotate them through. So, I mean, the best kind of nut is go buy one of every kind of nut at the health food store at the bulk bins, right? And just use one tonight, use one the next night, because now you're gonna get a balance of all the different nutrients in all the different nuts. Also, don't forget about the seeds. The seeds are very important. Flax seeds, I like to eat flax seeds on a regular basis. Also chia seeds and hemp seeds to a lesser degree. I think if I had to say something, I do like actually the red walnuts. They're one of my favorite nuts just because of the red pigment. They're higher in antioxidants, plus the walnuts are known to be higher in omega-3 fatty acids. That being said, I also like the Peru nuts to eat them once in a while. You know, according to some of the data I've seen, they have also high antioxidant content. Plus, they taste really good. All right, next question is from a Hazardous Heart. What do you think of the NutriBullet? I have a Vitamix and NutriBullet, and I find myself using the NutriBullet more often. So every blender has its pros and cons, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of just standard blending anymore if it's not under a vacuum, because in my opinion, it does a lot of nutritional damage to some of the phytochemicals and phytonutrients in the food, which are some of the most important nutrients for us. That being said, I actually own a Vitamix and a NutriBullet. I actually pretty much don't use a Vitamix anymore, but I do use my NutriBullet that I did convert to a vacuum blender, which you can do for around 20 bucks. I'll put a link down below to the video where I show you guys how to do that. Actually, overall, for, you know, whatever the NutriBullet's selling for these days, 80, 100 bucks, you know, the best deals at Costco for you guys if you guys don't have one. I like the NutriBullet for what it is. You know, it's a cheap Chinese-made blender. It's fairly powerful. It gets a really good consistency. The problem is it's cheaply made, right? The bearings tend to go out on it. They tend to leak a lot. And also I don't like how you can't really clean underneath the blades too effectively. But I do like that you could actually turn it into a vacuum blender quite easily. So I would encourage you guys to check out the video I made down below. But yeah, I mean, I travel with the NutriBullet just because it's so convenient, and I would encourage you guys to get the extra large jar. You could buy an extra large jar. I think it's 32-ounce jar, because some of those smaller jars on the NutriBullet, it's just not enough smoothie for me or whatever I'm making. On the other hand, you know, in some cases I like using the NutriBullet. Like if I'm going to be grinding flax seeds and I'm not grinding a whole bunch, I'll use the NutriBullet instead of, you know, the larger blender that I have. So always matching your carafe size with the portion size you're blending is always going to work best. Next question is from Larry Hutcherson Sr. Have you done any research into nightshades? So yeah, so I mean, I'm sitting in front of a whole bunch of nightshades, my peppers right here. I don't have any more eggplant or tomatoes growing for the year, but I do have goji berries, which are actually in the nightshade family. So I mean, there's a lot of different opinions out there about nightshades. Nightshades contain lectins. Nightshades are not good for people because they give you arthritis. And my basic assessment is this. I mean, there's many problems. There's many problems with every different food on the planet, nightshades or otherwise. There's toxins in every food in the planet, nightshades or otherwise. And that can be affected positively or negatively by how the food was grown is one situation. So for example, I mean, if I pick my peppers green and eat them, right? There's different nutrients in that pepper than if I wait for my pepper to turn fully red and ripen. There's more phytonutrients in the pepper when it's red. The seeds inside are fully developed because, I mean, the plant's purpose on earth is actually to reproduce and actually to make an attractive fruit that we want to eat. And we will spit out the seeds, or the seeds will go through us, and then we'll deposit the seeds somewhere so that can actually grow next year. And when we eat a green pepper or a green fruit, the seeds inside are not fully mature. The plant really doesn't want you to eat the fruit because now you're eating its immature seeds that will not reproduce. So the plant, in its infinite wisdom, puts anti-nutrients in things like green peppers, and when tomatoes are not fully ripened properly, right, there may be more anti-nutrients in there. When eggplants are, you know, not fully ripened, there's more toxins in there, you know, whether you want to call them solanine or other alkaloids, you know, these are what's in there. So my goal is to eat the nightshade family plants with the lowest alkaloid content as possible, because these are some of the anti-nutrients that some people may be sensitive with. And so that's why I grow my peppers, so I can harvest them at their peak ripeness. But even when I buy nightshades in the grocery store, you know, if I'm not growing them, if it's not that time of year, I try to get the ripest ones as possible. So I think that's really important. The other thing for people that like don't eat nightshades because nightshades are bad, like, you know, I would encourage everybody to test on themselves, you know, and not just take somebody's gospel for granted, right? For some people, they may be sensitive to nightshades. Even if they get the ripest nightshade, you know, the ripest tomato. I have a friend that tomatoes burn his mouth for some reason. And so he just doesn't really eat tomatoes. And, you know, he may have an allergy to that. You know, maybe you get arthritis if you have tomatoes, and is that because they're not fully ripe, or is that just because they're a nightshade and there's just some toxins or anti-nutrients in there? Well, you guys should be aware of that and not just like take the word that it's going to cause problems, because on the flip side, while there are anti-nutrients in food, there's plenty of good nutrients that are good for you. You know, if you don't eat my red peppers, you know, you're going to miss out on the lycopene and some of the other phytonutrients and phytochemicals in the peppers because you're just not eating whole classes of fruits. Like, oh, you know, there's lectins in there, I'm just going to steer clear. All right, so you may be avoiding the lectins, but now you're not getting all the other vitamins and minerals, and especially if they're grown in my garden with rock dust minerals, you're not going to get the trace minerals into your diet either. So I think that's sad. So, I mean, in my opinion, I would encourage people to get the ripest fruit possible and or grow it yourself to see, you know, how it reacts with you, and do your own testing. If you eat tomatoes and your joints start to hurt, then maybe tomatoes aren't good for you, but that kind of tomato you ate, don't just say all tomatoes are bad because I ate it once from the store and they were pink and they bounced and they weren't ripe. Grow some homegrown black cherry tomatoes that are high in antioxidants. There's some indigo, you know, purple tomatoes that are like really anthocyanin rich, because the anthocyanins in deep purple pigmented fruits are shown to be like anti-inflammatory, right? So there's so many different things, but that's my overall general consensus at this point. All right, next question is from Miguel Turan. I have a question for you, if you can please answer it. Since the beginning of the year, I've become a raw foodist. I did a 2-week water fast and several weeks of juice fast. I only eat greens, legumes, vegetables, and fruits for the majority of the year, and I've been feeling great and lost a lot of weight. For about a month now, things took a turn for the worst. I have not been feeling good. I've been having lots of mucus, and I've noticed that sometimes it's hard to concentrate. All right, Miguel, so like, I don't give any kind of medical advice. What I'm gonna say is actually, if I was in your situation, this is what I would do and this is what I would think. You know, if you do want medical advice, please go to a, you know, medical provider or medical doctor. So in general, what I see is, I see many people in a raw foods diet, they get into a very, very restrictive diet. And also I see many people maybe not eating enough food. You know, so in the case, if somebody was eating greens, legumes, vegetables, and fruits, like I don't see any nuts in there, right? And nuts have essential fats. And while we don't necessarily need to eat nuts for our essential fats, especially if you're not eating enough greens and volume of greens and types of greens, you may be essential fat deficient, which can be problematic. In addition, a lot of the foods you're eating are really low calorie, and if I was losing a lot of weight, you know, hey, some weight loss in the beginning, good, because probably in my opinion, most Americans and people are overweight. Probably like 70% of Americans or more are overweight or obese, based on BMI. Lots of flies today. And so losing some weight is good, but at a certain point, if you continue to lose weight, that's not good, right? Our bodies should be at a homeostasis weight that our bodies are comfortable at. And the basic thing is, if you're not eating enough calories, then you're gonna continue to lose weight, and that's not good. So, I mean, if you're just under eating or not getting enough nutrients, then you're gonna feel like that. Some people might say, oh, it's detox, man, you're still detoxing. You know, and if you're having problems concentrating, like, to me, that would mean to me, like, maybe there's some like fatty acid deficiency, but you know, once again, that's just me personally. I would personally take a DHA supplement if it got to that situation. I would start including flax seeds in my diet, and I would start tracking my calories on a chronometer or fitday.com to see actually how much I was eating and to make sure that all my nutritional needs were getting met to the best of my ability. I mean, I could see people also too, like they may get sodium deficient if they're not really paying attention and they're not eating enough celery, or even trace mineral deficient if you're not eating seaweed. I mean, and you're just buying greens, legumes, fruits, and vegetables from the store. Like, I wouldn't put my health in the fruits and vegetables from the store. That's why I have a huge garden here. So hope that gives you a little bit of insight and answers some of the question. I know a lot of people wrestle with this, and it's just like, it has to be more of an individualized approach. I just can't say do this or do that. Because, I mean, you really need to kind of see somebody that knows more, that could take a full analysis of what's going on to really know the exact cause. I could only, you know, make rough guesses. It's like throwing darts at a dartboard with my eyes shut. All right, next question is from Tracy Kim. Well, okay, so you're here too. Quick question. With the way you eat, do you find it necessary to take supplement B12? Absolutely. So I recommend everybody, whether you're into raw vegan foods, vegan foods, or just omnivore, to take B12 these days. B12 is disappearing, and it's not just because I only eat plants, I'm not getting B12 because it's in the animals. It's not even in the animals anymore because of the way we're raising the animals, feeding them corn and soy on feedlots. They're not getting the B12. B12 doesn't come from, you know, the animals don't make it. It comes from what the animals are eating. So like if the animals were here and pulling up my lettuce out of my garden and eating the lettuce roots that have the bacteria that's actually making the B12, they would get their B12, right? I try not to wash my produce whenever I am able, but even then I don't tell myself like, oh yeah, John, you're gonna get all your B12 from the food, even though you don't spray and you have good bacterial counts in your garden. Like, that'd be ludicrous in my opinion. You know, I want to be safe than sorry and not live my life with a dogma. So I do take a B12 supplement that contains 3 different types of and forms of B12 just to make sure. Let's see, next question from Jennifer Ledford, hi. If you ever run out of content ideas, I would love to hear about how big your portion sizes should be, and also what to do if you keep craving something you're overdoing. Like, you shouldn't overeat nuts and seeds and you keep craving them intensely. Overeating on the raw diet would be another topic of interest. Would love to hear your wisdom. All right, so portion sizes. So, you know, since I've been doing this for 22 years, as time has gone on, I've noticed the portion sizes that I eat get a little bit smaller and smaller, right? And that's just for me. So I'd hate to say, you know, you need to eat a big bowl of salad, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Like, instead of like a portion size, what I like people to think about is like, I like to encourage everybody to eat until they're satiated, right? And only eat when you're hungry, right? Don't just because it's 5 o'clock you got to eat. Don't just eat a big bowl of salad because I said you got to eat 20 bananas or 2 heads of leafy greens. That's just like ridiculous, because now you're overriding what you inherently need if you listen to your body with what I'm telling you to do. And I think there's a lot of gurus out there that want to tell you what to do, and they want to know that they're right. But I think, you know, we need to have some kind of guidelines to know what we need to eat, but also we need to listen to our bodies and ourselves, because we're all uniquely, inherently a little bit different. So, I mean, it just depends. Like, you know, the other night for dinner, I juiced, I don't know, probably about 10 peppers and 6 different purple carrots and some hot peppers in the juice and a handful of tomatoes. And I made a big soup, and the big soup filled about, and then I cut up a lot of vegetables and put in natto and some artichoke hearts and some corn and lettuce and arugula and spinach from my garden chopped up and seaweed. And then it was like 8 cups, right, that filled the whole bowl, because it was like a measuring cup bowl, 8 cups. And then I finished about 4 cups of it, because I mean, this was a thick and dense soup. I mean, I also blended in some nuts in there. And I mean, so it's more dense, but if I had a salad, I'd have a nice big bowl of salad, which is mostly airspace with a little dressing on top, right? So I think like portion sizes instead, if maybe thinking portion sizes, I want maybe you guys to think of like more calories, because one of the challenges I see is people like under eating on a raw foods diet, because I mean, lettuce has virtually, I mean, it's almost, I won't say calorie free, but it has so little calories that, you know, you could eat like 2 heads of lettuce and maybe if you're lucky, you got 200 calories. Which isn't a lot, and an average person might need like 2,000 calories a day just to get by and function and not lose weight. You know, if it's persimmons, it depends how big or small the persimmons are. You know, lately I was eating some high chia persimmons, and I'll have like anywhere from 3 to 5 until I feel full, and they're, you know, pretty good size. So, I mean, it's good to have like kind of a basis of how much to eat, but you shouldn't probably like, oh, I'm eating what John eats, you know. I'm eating for me, not for you, and it also depends on how your activity levels are, if you're doing a lot more work or not. And so also what to do if you keep craving something you're overdoing, like you shouldn't be overeating nuts and seeds. So if you're craving nuts and seeds, that's because, you know, in my opinion, you know, our bodies crave calories. And if you're under eating, your body's going to crave calories to stay in homeostasis. And nuts and seeds are easy calories to eat because they're so calorically dense. So, you know, my opinion, if I was craving something like nuts and seeds, I would try to just, number 1, eat higher volumes of food. Number 2, I'd try to eat more varieties of food and get different nutrients in. I mean, I know a lot of people out there don't believe when I say you want to eat a lot of different varieties of food because they have different nutrients, and people think food is food is food and it's just calories. But people don't understand, like, every different plant makes up different kinds of chemicals. A tomato can make up to 300 different metabolites or plant chemicals when it's sitting here exposed to the sun. And, you know, every plant makes different kinds of chemicals. These chemicals may have beneficial effects within us to prevent cancer and do all these other things. And it's one of those unique nutrients in a food you may not be getting if you're only eating kale, bananas, and dates all day, right? And so that's why I really like to, you know, get a variety and include things like seaweeds, right? And rotate the different kinds of nuts. So, I mean, I probably have other videos on overeating on a raw foods diet. If I remember, I'll put a link down below. Hope that helped you out a little bit, Jennifer. All right, next question is from Celia White. Hello, I love your YouTube channel. I'm in the process of switching from a cooked vegan lifestyle to raw. In one of your videos, you stated that you only eat a handful of nuts or seeds a day. Would you share either through a video or messaging me what nuts and seeds you eat, and perhaps You already made a video about this and I missed it. Thanks so much for your great videos. All right, so all the nuts and seeds I eat, I kind of mentioned in an earlier question, but basically I go to the health food store, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, wherever it is, wherever I happen to be, and I try to get like one of every kind of nut and seed. And I just, you know, I don't eat cashews. I try not to eat cashews too much because I don't really like them. They don't agree with me, and I don't think they're really that good of a nut personally. But other than that, I try to rotate my nuts always. So like if I have you know, pine nuts tonight, I'll have macadamia nuts the next night, I'll have pecans the next night, walnuts the next night, you know, some Brazil nuts the next night, some jungle peanuts the next night. I always generally, with all my different nuts that I eat, I always include like a tablespoon of flax seeds to kind of balance out the omega-3 to 6 balance, because most nuts and seeds are high in omega-6 and lower in omega-3s. It's very important to keep your balance in ratio properly, and if you're eating too many nuts and seeds, it could really imbalance you. But yeah, I mean, if it's a nut or seed that I could eat, I'm probably going to eat it. If it could be eaten raw, and the Baru nuts are one exception, then I do eat that are roasted. That I'll put a link down below if I remember to the video I did, 10 foods I eat that aren't raw. All right, next question is from Scene LeBoy. Hey John, I want to know your opinion. Which would be safer to cook in, a vitaclay or an instapot? Good, better, and best. Also, how can I get in touch with you? All right, Scene. So a vitaclay is basically a cooking appliance, kind of like a crock pot that's made out of clay or ceramic. And then the Instapot is kind of like a pressure cooker that has a stainless steel inside. So actually I own a vitaclay and an Instapot personally. Some versions of the vitaclay and the Instapot actually could be used for fermentation. Also, my girlfriend uses the Instapot, and I use Instapot sometimes to cook our dog beans and rice. And actually I use the Instapot to cook soybeans when I fermented them into natto. So I'm familiar. Those are some of the best ways to heat things. You want to heat things actually at you know, lower temperature for a longer period of time. Of the two, actually, I would probably say a vitaclay is safer, just for the fact that it's a ceramic instead of stainless steel. Stainless steel even can leach things, and that's just my opinion. And then to get in touch with me, I mean, the easiest way is just sign up for my coaching session for gardening, which I have a link down below for. And this question is from Jelena Femi. What about salt in fermented food? You need to eat only limited amount a day and you reach salt daily allowance. All right, so I don't generally like to actually salt my food or add salt to my food, so I don't take the salt shaker and like pour that on my food, but generally at my dinner meal at night, I like to add some kind of food that actually has salt already added to it. So I'm getting a much lower percentage of salt, but more importantly, I'm actually getting, besides getting just the salt, which, you know, we do need sodium, it is an important nutrient, but unfortunately most people overeat sodium. I'm not by any means saying, oh yeah, just eat salt with everything. I'll put a link down below on why I believe salt is not a health food and you shouldn't necessarily focus on it or actually eat it directly. But I do like to have some miso that has some sodium added, and there's many different research studies on miso and its benefits of eating the fermented miso and how it can potentially prevent disease and all these things. And some salt is in there, and miso is a fermented food. Also things like sauerkraut and kimchi, you know, has salt added to it in the making of it if it's commercially done, but if you're making it at home, you don't really actually need to add the salt. I do have a nice video I did with Sandor Katz, the fermentation expert, where we talk about this more in detail. Salt is actually not in fermented foods for any kind of safety reasons, according to him, and he's a fermentation expert, because I was under the assumption that it was, but it actually isn't. It's in there for taste, so actually we like it, so maybe it also, the texture, the crunchiness remains a bit better in some of the fermented foods. But yeah, I like to add miso, whether it's fermented soybeans or fermented chickpeas or some fermented vegetables that has some salt in my food. Now, I'm not eating like big tubs of fermented vegetables for dinner. I'm eating mostly salad and greens and vegetables from my garden and other vegetables with, you know, maybe a teaspoon or a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons, or if I'm feeling crazy, I'll like just dump a couple of the parts of the jar in there or whatever, or maybe I put a pickle, blend it up in my dressing. So I'm eating some of that in moderation to get the sodium, but also, I mean, for me, more importantly, the sodium is just a side benefit to getting a little bit of extra sodium, because I know some raw food is maybe too low in sodium if you're not having anything extra in your diet with salt. So yeah, so you just need to be aware of this, and I always like to look at the packages on how much sodium content on pre-bought krauts, and some of them are actually rather high. They'd be surprising, so you really want to watch it. Next question is from Softies. My food coach told me not to eat fresh/juice vegetables/fruits in the evening because it'll stain your stomach and turn to alcohol while you sleep. Have you got any opinion on this? So, in my opinion, it's actually not good to eat anything right before you sleep. I like to try to finish dinner at least 3 or 4 hours before I even go to bed. So at least some of that's kind of like work through me a little bit, and not just eat dinner and then go to bed, right? That's not necessarily too good, no matter whatever the food is. That being said, always think good, better, best. I'd much rather drink, I like to drink actually coconut water or water right before I go to bed actually, but not eat anything. But I wouldn't, if I couldn't drink water, coconut water, maybe I'd have like a vegetable juice, cucumber, celery juice before I go to bed. That'd be, a much better thing to drink than having like a brownie or some chocolate chip cookies, right? So think good, better, best. And if your options are a fruit juice or a vegetable juice, or, croissants or donuts for dessert, right? I don't have to tell you guys which one is healthier of those guys. But the question is, will it turn to alcohol while you sleep? I'm not an expert on this, but basically for things that are fermented, it can take some time, and I think in most cases, if it's especially a juice or fruit, it's probably not going to ferment while you're sleeping, in my personal opinion. Next question is from Julie Charleston. How many refrigerators do you have? You bought a huge load of fruit. How do you keep it from going bad? So I have 3 refrigerators currently, and they're each set at different temperatures. And I do have a couple of videos where I talk about this. If I remember, I'll post down below. I also have other devices in there that actually put ozone in there that actually help sanitize, kill mold and different things, so the fruit stays fresher longer. And also, let's not forget that I can go through lots of fruit really fast, especially if I'm doing something like juicing. And and if it is going bad, then I'll also freeze it. So I also have freezer attached to 2 of the refrigerators. One refrigerator is actually just 100% fridge, and I'll freeze fruit. So we have endless amounts of frozen blueberries and strawberries and blackberries at this time. And I do have other videos where I talk about how to keep your food fresher for longer without going bad. Let's see. Second to last question is from M. Miller. Is that a row of avocados on the wall behind the juicer? Wow, how many do you eat in a week? So yeah, on my kitchen counter, I put a little clear shelf. That's actually my avocado ripening shelf, because it never seems you have ripe avocados when you want them. So I put that up in the kitchen, and when I buy avocados from the store, which this time of year they're about 2 for $1, and I could buy, like, between me and my girlfriend, we could eat a bunch. So I'll just go to the store and buy like 10. I gotta line them up and make sure they don't get bruised or damaged, and I'll just line them up there, and I'll check them every day. And if they get soft, then I put them in the fridge. And once they get soft and I put them in the fridge, they'll still last like another week. Once they're ripe, at the ripeness point, I'll put them in the fridge and they'll still last. And so how many do I eat in a week? It just depends on the week. Sometimes if I have a lot of avocados that are ripe, then I'll tend to eat more. And if I don't have as many, then I'll tend to eat nuts instead of avocados. But I always try to rotate the different fats. Sometimes, I guess average for me is if I'm gonna eat an avocado meal, I'll use 2 avocados. Generally, I've been making like avocado mashed up, or I'll blend in an avocado with my soup dressing, or into my soup, or into a dressing. And so it just varies. If avocados are on sale, like they're on sale earlier this year, like 4 for $1, I was like, that week I was eating a lot of avocados because they're cheap and they're ripe. But generally, I'd say maybe 4 to 5 a week, maybe, depends. And then also too, it's my girlfriend, and she eats a lot of avocados as well. And then last question is from Sally R. What do you use in place of sunscreen? So generally I don't use sunscreen. It's December now, so the sun is not as intense as it is in the summertime. And what I do for sunscreen is, because I do own sunscreen, so I have some baby sunscreen, which is like a high SPF, and it's like the cleanest, least toxic sunscreen you could buy. It's like all natural and mineral derived for the most part, based on EWG, Environmental Working Groups, testing of cosmetics or whatnot. And so I rarely use that. I'm not compliant. I probably should be a bit more compliant. But instead, for sunscreen, I like to eat, richly pigmented fruits, right? And richly pigmented fruits will basically get under our skin and protect us from the sun from the inside out. And this is how it should be naturally. Sunscreen is not a natural product. Nowhere in all of human history did we create sunscreen until the last maybe like 100 years. But all through human history, people ate a diet rich in phytonutrients that are the plant pigments that protected them from the sun from the inside out, not from the outside in. That being said, you know, with ozone holes and all these crazy things, the sun is getting more intense these days. And so while I do encourage people to eat like high antioxidant foods, every different colorful food will help your skin pigments, beta carotene, zeaxanthin, lutein, lycopene, you know, anthocyanins, all these different buzzwords. But I want you guys to remember about anthocyantin, and that's anthocyantin is a supplement you could buy. It's actually derived from red algae, and that's probably one of the most critical and highest antioxidant skin foods to protect you from the sun that you could buy. And it basically comes in like little capsules. If you guys want to have the most sun protection, that's the thing to get. I do take that on a maybe irregular basis, but I do eat fruits and vegetables in copious amounts, in large amounts. So I mean, lately I've been feasting on persimmons, nice beta carotene rich. I mean, for breakfast today, I actually had a pepper, purple carrot juice, and then I'm probably gonna go in and have some red cactus pear juice, which is also high in betalains. And then the other thing I do for sun is I wear clothes. So like I'll try to be outside, get sun for part of the day, and then when my body senses that it's had enough and I have had enough sun, I put clothes on to cover my body. And also especially working out in the garden in the summertime, I wear a nice wide brimmed hat. I think it's a girl's hat, but I don't really care because nobody sees me. But it keeps the sun out of my eyes and out of my face, because sun can cause damage. And I think that there's some raw foodists out there that, in my opinion, just plain get too much sun, and that's not good either, you know. Much like anything in life, you don't want to get too much or too little. You want to just get just the right amount. So get enough sun, but protect yourself enough so you don't get sun damage. And of course, eat the phytonutrient and phytochemical rich foods that will protect you guys from the sun. So that's pretty much it for this episode today. I think the sun's kind of moving out of my zone here, so it's getting a little bit darker in my garden, but I'm glad I'm done. If you guys enjoyed this Q&A session, hey, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. That'll encourage me to do more Q&As like this in the future. If you want to talk to me personally, be sure to check that link down below to sign up for one of my Fiverr coaching sessions. I do call people back when I have time, which is actually quite limited these days. Also, be sure to share this video with somebody you think it might help. Also, be sure to click the subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming episodes that are coming out about every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. And be sure, don't forget to check my past episodes. They are a wealth of knowledge. Over 500 episodes on this channel at this time, answering many different questions about eating a fruit and vegetable dominated, plant-based, uncooked diet. So with that, my name is John Kohler with okraw.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.